Have you ever watched someone chase their dreams only to find themselves in a nightmare? This is the story of Adaobi, a young woman from Okpuno, a small village in eastern Nigeria. In Okpuno, life was tough. The red earth cracked under the harsh sun. The borehole hardly produced enough water, and survival meant waiting for the next market day with hope in your chest and emptiness in your stomach. Adaobi's family was one of the poorest. They lived in a crumbling mud house with a leaking zinc roof. Her mother, Mama Nkiruka, worked tirelessly on a small farm, but her meager harvests could barely feed Adaobi and her two younger siblings. Every day, Adaobi washed her mother's back bent deeper, her hands rougher and her heart heavier. One stormy night, as rain lashed against the zinc roof and the wind whistled through the cracks like hungry spirits, Adaobi stared at the ceiling, her chest pounding. She couldn't take it anymore. She wanted more from life. She had heard the stories. The city was full of opportunities. Money flowed freely, and with hard work, she could change her family's story. The next morning, with nothing but a small polythene bag and her mother's tearful prayers, Adaobi boarded a rickety bus heading for Lagos. But the city Adaobi believed would save her was waiting with dangers that would test her faith, her strength, and her very life. What would the city give her, and what would it take away? Lagos hit Adaobi like a tidal wave. The noise, the blaring horns, the sea of unfamiliar faces. It was overwhelming. She clutched her bag tightly, afraid of losing the little she had. "Are you lost?" a warm female voice asked. Adaobi turned to see a young woman with flawless skin and a confident smile. "I just arrived," she admitted shyly. "My name is Gloria. Don't worry, I will help you," the woman said, looping her arm through Adaobi's as if they had known each other for years. Gloria took Adaobi to her small but neat apartment, fed her, and even gave her clothes. "You are like a sister to me now," Gloria said with a reassuring smile. Adaobi's heart swelled with gratitude, but gratitude turned to confusion days later when Gloria asked, "Ada, you are beautiful. Do you know how much men will pay to be with someone like you?" Adaobi froze. "I didn't come here for that. I just want to work." Gloria's smile faltered. "Work? Real jobs don't just fall from the sky. You better wake up." Adaobi tried to ignore her, but a creeping fear settled in her heart. Was Gloria really the friend she seems to be? When Adaobi refused Gloria's suggestion, the atmosphere in the apartment shifted. Gloria was colder now, distant. One morning, she announced, "I've found you a job at a boutique. The owner is kind. You will earn good money." Adaobi's heart leapt. "Thank you, Gloria." The boutique was large and luxurious. Mr. Olani, the owner, welcomed her warmly. "Do your job well," he said, smiling in a way that made Adaobi uncomfortable, "and you will rise quickly." For weeks, Adaobi worked hard, arranging clothes and attending to customers. She began to believe her life was finally turning around until Mr. Olani started lingering too close, touching her shoulder when no one was watching. One evening, he cornered her in the stockroom. "Adaobi," he whispered, his hand sliding along her arm, "if you want to keep this job, you must make me happy." Adaobi's heart pounded. She pushed him away and fled. But when she reached Gloria's apartment that night, the door was locked. Gloria's voice from inside was cold. "You are on your own now, Ada. Don't ever come back." Adaobi sank to the ground, tears soaking her face. Had she just lost everything? Adaobi slept at a bus park for 2 nights, hungry and shivering. On the 3rd day, she wandered into a bustling market, hoping to find work. "Daughter, come," an elderly woman selling vegetables called out, her eyes soft with concern. "You look like you haven't eaten in days." Adaobi hesitated, but the woman pushed a plate of yam towards her. "Thank you, ma," Adaobi whispered, tears pricking her eyes. The woman introduced herself as Mama Nkechi. "You remind me of my daughter," she said. "She came to the city years ago, but she didn't survive it." Adaobi shivered. Mama Nkechi offered her a small room behind her market stall to sleep in. That night, as Adaobi lay on a thin mattress, she whispered, "Maybe my luck is changing." But she didn't know that danger was still coming for her. A week later, Adaobi bumped into Gloria at a bus stop. Well, look at you," Gloria sneered. "Living with that old woman now. Pathetic. Adaobi ignored her and walked away. But Gloria's word stung. The next day, police stormed Mama Nkechi's store, accusing her of selling stolen goods. They arrested her on the spot. Adaobi cried and begged, but no one listened. As Mama Nkechi was dragged away, she whispered, "Ada, be careful. Someone set me up." When Adaobi first met Mama Nkechi in Lagos, she told her, "I left my village, Okpuno, years ago to survive here. The city hasn't been kind to me either." Adaobi's chest tightened. She knew it had to be Gloria. But why? Adaobi was alone again. She wandered the streets that night, the city lights blurring through her tears. Suddenly, a group of men stepped out of an alley, blocking her path. "Fine girl, where are you going?" one sneered, grabbing her arm. Adaobi's heart thudded. She screamed, struggling, but no one came. Then a deep voice roared, "Leave her alone." A tall young man appeared, wielding a heavy stick. The men fled into the darkness. "Are you all right?" the stranger asked gently. "Yes, thank you," Adaobi whispered, still trembling. His name was Chike. He offered to take her somewhere safe. But who was this stranger who appeared at the perfect time? And could Adaobi really trust him? Chike took Adaobi to a youth shelter. "You can stay here for now," he said. Adaobi was grateful. She began helping out at the shelter, slowly regaining hope. One night, Chike pulled her aside. "Adaobi, I have a business opportunity. One trip and you will make more money than you ever seen." Adaobi's heart skipped. "What kind of business?" Chike smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just trust me." Adaobi stared at him, her instincts screaming. Was this really the opportunity she had prayed for, or another trap? Adaobi refused Chike's offer. The next morning, police raided the shelter. Chike was dragged out in handcuffs, accused of trafficking young women abroad. Adaobi's knees buckled. "So it was true," she whispered. She could have been his next victim. She looked around at the frightened faces of the other girls. If she stayed in the city any longer, would she survive? Adaobi used the little money she had to return to Okpuno. When Mama saw her, she screamed and ran into her arms. "I thought I had lost you," Mama cried. Adaobi wept. "Mama, I've learned my lesson. The city promised me riches, but it gave me scars. I just want to start again here with you." Together, they started a small business selling vegetables. It was hard work, but Adaobi was finally at peace. One morning, a familiar voice called her name. Mama Nkechi, now released from prison, smiled and embraced Adaobi. "My daughter," she said softly, "you survived and now you will thrive." Adaobi looked at the rising sun over Okpuno and whispered, "I may have lost everything in the city, but I gained something more valuable: wisdom." She learned that true wealth wasn't found in glittering streets or promises of quick success. It was in faith, in family, and in the strength to keep going, no matter how hard life became. And that's the lesson the city taught her, but almost at the cost of her life. As Adaobi looked at the rising sun over Okpuno, she finally understood not all that glitters is gold, and not every road that looks straight leads to safety. In Africa, we say, the child who refuses to heed a mother's warning will feel the heat of the fire. Adaobi had felt that heat. The city had promised her wealth, but gave her scars. Yet, she learned the most powerful lesson of all. True riches are not in the noise of the city, but in the peace of a content heart. She also remembered another proverb Mama Nkechi once told her: a river that forgets its source will soon dry up. Adaobi had almost forgotten where she came from, but she had returned wiser, stronger, and with a renewed purpose. So, dear listener, ask yourself, what cities in your life are promising you quick success, and at what cost? Because at the end of the day, a bird that leaves its nest in search of golden grains must be careful not to land in the hunter's trap. Thank you for watching. Remember to share this story with someone who needs this reminder today.